So first of all, welcome to all of our attendees this evening and welcome to Tracey. We are so excited to have each of you with us tonight. We have people who have been with us for years through OU Cares and different programs that we've offered. And we have some really exciting guests with us from internationally and beyond our typical reach. So welcome and thank you so much for being with us this evening. First, I'd like to also say thank you so much to Tracey. Tracey and I have a wonderful relationship professionally and personally, and she is such a wealth of information. I'm so lucky to count her among my network and as a friend, and I look forward to her sharing information with us as a group today and learning more, because every single time I talk with Tracey, I learn something more. She is a wonderful advocate for the community. She is an amazingly talented author, and she's someone who we can all learn a lot from. So thank you very much this evening for being with us. And with that, I will share first, I'd also like to say that I will be sharing Tracey's information as well in the chat here in just a moment, both her contact information that she's asked me to share, as well as a website and the names of her books. So I will be doing that in just a minute. And thank you so much, Tracey. Cohen is with us this evening. Tracey Cohen, as I mentioned, is an author of multiple books, and she's here to share with us her story. Go ahead, Tracey. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen. I can't say how mutual the feelings are, and thank you all for taking your time to be here and listen to my story and what I have to say. So I was born on the autism spectrum nearly 50 years ago. Kind of like, wow, when and how did that happen, right? But yeah, so I was born on the autism spectrum, but my family and I didn't have any awareness of autism until I was 30. I guess I'd say the only, reference that we had to it was when I was a young girl, my father took us to see Rain Man. And that just didn't ring any bells because I'm not male, I'm not a savant, and I'm definitely not a genius. But from the time I was a baby, my mom knew that something just wasn't right. But when she voiced her concerns to professionals, family, and friends, she was pretty much told one of three things. Either that she was making too big of a deal out of things, that she was a bad parent, or that I was just a brat. So without any information, needless to say, there were a lot of misunderstandings growing up. Life was really difficult. There were a lot of arguments, a lot of harsh words. And I've always been a very sensitive person, and also always wanted to please. And so that made things even more difficult. And I pretty much grew up feeling, I mean, my family is wonderful. I'm not saying that they didn't love me, but the way that I felt because of all of the misunderstandings, I grew up feeling unloved, disliked, insecure, very sad, very confused, just feeling like I didn't belong anywhere, and just not understood, and I didn't understand others. But again, I've always wanted to please, and I've also always been very stubborn. Those are two things that have never changed, probably never will. But so with a lot of hard work, I made it through school. I graduated high school in 1989, and despite a few years in the institution, which was probably the worst experience of my life, something very, very difficult. But I did attend the University of Michigan, and I earned a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology and a K through 12 teaching certificate. And it was through my teaching career that I came to learn about autism. So I started in early childhood in the schools, and eventually had a family ask to teach me in their home, and I taught in people's homes for a while. And I had actually been living in Texas, and I had a family hire me back in Michigan, and they hired me specifically for my teaching background, and they wanted me to work with with both of their children who were school age, but mostly their son, who was suspected of having Asperger's syndrome. Well, they really didn't know what Asperger's syndrome was. I'd never heard of it. And for those of you who aren't familiar, the labels changed a while ago, and it's all autism spectrum disorder right now. But Asperger's syndrome, it's kind of like ice cream. It's all ice cream. You can have chocolate, vanilla, peppermint, but if you know what flavor you're getting, you kind of know a little better what to expect. But so anyway, we found a conference for me to attend and learn about Asperger's syndrome or autism. And, I went to learn to help the little boy and, gain knowledge. And I certainly gained a lot of knowledge. It was a very surreal experience. The speaker started talking, and immediately here I found this person who I'd never met talking about me. And, he gave reasons for things and explanations for things, and seemed to understand me more than even myself, certainly better than my family. And everything fit. And I'm not somebody who's at least very emotional outward. But pretty much from the moment he started talking, I started crying. And it was just, it's just with how I was made, how I felt my whole life growing up, nobody understanding, and always, being made to feel I was wrong, having somebody validate all my struggles, and, basically telling me I'm not stupid, I'm not wrong. It was just amazing. And so I cried through till the very end, and I went up to him afterwards, and he, said that he'd seen reactions like mine before, and that if I felt as strongly as I did, that I should continue to learn about autism and possibly seek a diagnosis. And so that's what I did. And the more that I read, the more conferences I attended, the more everything fit. It, just pretty much explained all of the misunderstandings of, my childhood, and things that, it's kind of like going around with a broken leg, but you don't know it. You see people just walking and running with such ease, and you're trying to keep up, and every step hurts, and you just don't have any reason why. And people roll their eyes, and they, you basically are reprimanded for things that you can't control. And it just, everything fit now, as did my family's reactions. My dad can be a very cynical kind of person, and he's very straightforward, and he tells it like it is. If he didn't buy it, and he would be one to just kind of dismiss the idea, but everything made sense to him. And so that even it was hard for me, because I've never been one to make excuses for things, and so it wasn't like I was looking for an out. But again, everything I read, just all the pieces fit. And especially with my parents, support and, believing in it, it just made me continue further. And I, again, this is many years ago, and while we still have a long way to go with awareness and knowledge and information out there, there was even less back then. And I certainly didn't understand that, when seeking diagnosis as an adult, especially as a female, that I couldn't just go to anybody. And so anyway, I was we were in touch with an Autism Society, and some recommendations were given. And the person I went to, it was a pretty devastating experience. The psychologist I went to, he basically tried to diagnose me the same as he would diagnose a young boy. And he, he was somewhat condescending, and pretty much just left me, well, without any real validation or anything else. He was kind of like, well, you have something, but I don't know what it is. And just really made me feel like I was just kind of this person looking for some kind of excuse for my struggles. And so that was very difficult, because that was the last thing that I would ever do. And but I tried to put it behind me and just kind of move on. And I've always been someone who's wanted to help. And in that time, from 2003 through to 2005, I actually found the time to pack up. And I learned about the Peace Corps a long time ago, and I was able to leave the country and spend 2 years serving in the Peace Corps. And it was at the very end of my service that the Autism Society of Michigan, who had always been just very wonderful with me, and they were very validating, even though I didn't have an official diagnosis. They didn't know where I had gone, and they actually called my family because they wanted me to be a part of a panel. And ironically, the panel was the day after I arrived back in country. But it was just something that I couldn't let go, because again, all the pieces fit. And so I agreed to be on the panel, and it was a really wonderful experience. And again, I couldn't stop reading. I couldn't stop attending conferences, because intuitively it just all seemed to fit. And it was at a conference I attended presented by Tony Atwood, who is just an amazing, amazing person and speaker. And he's been a leader in the field for a long time. And I again, every conference I would attend, I'd, start crying, just that, validation. And, he's very approachable. And during a break, he took the time to listen to me, and he rolled his eyes a little bit, but not at me. And he's like, well, obviously the person who you went to see doesn't understand the differences between males and females, as well as, trying to diagnose a child versus an adult. And he said that I needed to, to seek diagnosis from somebody who is very familiar. And he didn't know of anybody. I'm in Michigan. But he knew a wonderful psychologist out in Oregon. Her name is Dr. Karen McKibben. And long story short, with the support of my family, but my mom helped me do the legwork before, and we flew out there together to speak with the psychologist. And I decided, then that regardless of what she said, that was going to be it. It didn't matter if the pieces fit or not. And long story short, it was, she was 100%, and even said that had I been diagnosed as a very young child, that it might not have been Asperger's syndrome, it might have been more classic autism. And just for those of you out there who wonder and see maybe your loved ones sometimes doing a little better, doing a little worse, the autism it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum of abilities, and it's very normal for somebody to move their place on the spectrum. It can have to do with all kinds of things, stress and development, and just in any number of things. But anyway, so it was very validating, because again, it just made all the pieces fit. But at the same time, and I was 39 at the time. At the same time, it was a little bit of a letdown as well, because here I now have this diagnosis, and but it's kind of like, well, where do I go from here? It's not like it solved my problems. It didn't, so it didn't apparently, it immediately make things easier. It's not like, having a shot or taking some medicine, and all of a sudden everything that's been difficult for you is all better. And a lot of, we kind of live in a sink or swim kind of world. You either, find a way to, survive and kind of keep moving forward, or you sink. And so, I found kind of by default different strategies to kind of, I watch people. I learned to, mask things, and just kind of figure out how to interact and how to kind of break down in private, just to kind of, keep going. And so a lot of the strategies I've already kind of developed on my own, but little by little, I continue to read more and learn more about myself, and just understand some things that I just, couldn't really understand before. Kind of a silly little example is I'm very, very literal, and I knowing that when somebody says something's going to be at 9 o'clock, it very well might not be at 9 o'clock. It might be 9:30. It might not happen at all. And I learned to develop a backup plan, so that if I was planning on something and it didn't happen, change is always just a very traumatic experience. But I had a backup plan. I had, something, a different way to go. And one example too, there's somebody who I would train with, and he was perpetually late, and I would get very, very angry and upset. And it helped me to learn that not everybody's like me. there are different styles, and it wasn't that he was doing anything personally to hurt me, but this is just who he was, and I could either learn to accept it or not. And just a lot of different things like that just provided a lot of insight, and helped to smooth some edges, and just help me strategize a little better throughout life. And so I, again, being someone who always wants to help people, and just learn more, I continue to learn and read. And I came across a book called 6-Word Lessons on Growing Up Autistic, 100 Lessons to Understand How Autistic People See Life. And with pretty much everything I read, I'd look at the resources in the back. And, so when I went to the link, it kind of said, be a published author. And, are you an expert on something? Do you have something that you want to share with the world? And, having learned that there are differences between males and females, and just, realizing how the lack of information out there, and how, even somebody knowing, or a book kind of like the one that I was reading, any materials, had somebody known something to tell my mom, to tell my family, rather than, just dismissing her. It would have made a huge difference in my family's life, as well as obviously my own. And so I decided to, I thought, well, maybe I can, help with this effort and help some others. And so I submitted, I contacted the publishers, and they liked my idea. And so I submitted a proposal, and a little less than a year later, something that I had never even considered, let alone dreamed of, I became a published author. My first book, which you might already have in the chat, is 6-Word Lessons on Female Asperger's Syndrome, 100 Lessons to Understand and Support Girls and Women with Asperger's. And one of the things that I really liked about the book is, especially today, nobody wants to read an encyclopedia. People's lives are very busy. People's attention spans can be short. And the way the book is set up, it's a very concise format. It's 100 lessons broken into 10 chapters. Every chapter title is 6 words. Every lesson title is 6 words, and it's followed by a 40 to 60 word description. The lesson title is, and then there are resources at the back. So, it's a book that I worked very hard to make very concise, but also have a lot of information with, and relative information. I believe, now more than ever, there's more information out there, but there's a big difference between knowledge and understanding. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to try to bridge the gap, and that I'm still trying to do, because you can know something, but you still might not understand it. I still have people who are very close to me, who get very annoyed and frustrated and angry with things that they say they understand. And it's kind of like, well, that I have a lot of trouble with change. So, wouldn't you kind of think that, a last minute cancellation, or maybe that's the reason why I ask, a lot of times, if you can, as much notice as you can give me. It's not to irritate. It's because all those things still affect me. But so anyway, and I was actually doubted that it was, that I'd really be writing it for anybody but myself. And like I said, I can be a very stubborn person, and even with the lack of confidence. And I had my publisher's backing, and the response was just, really pretty overwhelming. And I have to say, Kristen and OU Cares they were one of the first to, I don't have a marketing budget, and so I'd send out these blind emails, and she actually took the time to read the email and contact me, and they were one of my very first presentations. And from there, it's just continued, and I never would have dreamed that I would have sold well over 2,000 books now, and given numerous presentations and had people not only in the United States and countries like Australia buy my book, but even countries like Romania and countries I've never heard of, Malta. And I've had teachers incorporate my book into their classroom. And so, that validation made me, realize that there's a need from, families, from people on the spectrum. And so that's why I do what I do. And in giving presentations and talking to people, I would have people who would say, well, I want to hear more about your story. And it's always, I don't speak because it's easy or because I want attention. I speak because I think when we share our struggles, especially in a way of being in real life and relevant, and something that people can relate to, it can make people feel less alone. It can make them understand their own challenges. And, I have a lot of embarrassing things that I'm embarrassed of and ashamed of, but I share them to try to help others. And so I never would have considered myself an author, but let alone people wanting to listen to me, or being worthy of an autobiography. And it took a number of years, but my first book I published in 2015, and the more comments I got, the more I really started considering, well, maybe I can do it. And my publishers kind of gave me the format. They started a tell your story series, which was really meant for nonprofits, but I was able to find a way to kind of write my own story. And again, it's not in the 6-word lesson format, but it's in a very concise format. And so I actually published this is my third book, and it's My Life on the Autism Spectrum, Misunderstandings, Insight, and Growth. And I actually published it just last year in August. And, this is something that I really wanna stress to people. I actually found the time because, I had been working, and with the onset of the pandemic, I was furloughed and, pretty much, and lost my job. And so I'd been thinking about it for a while. And, it wasn't like just kind of the light bulb went on. There were a lot of dark days, and, just kind of wanting to shut down. But one thing I've learned, I've always try to do, and I want to encourage people to do. You know, you're going to have hard days and you're going to have hard moments, and that's actually one of the great things about change, even though I hate it, is even though change can be really, really hard and difficult, you know, when things seem to be at their worst, you know, you can be assured that change is going to happen. They're not going to stay, it's not going to stay that way. But you have to kind of, you know, you can't have a pity party forever. You know, take a day, take a couple days to, you know, be sad, feel sorry for yourself, you know, just heal, rest, but start doing something, you know, that you gotta find ways to move forward, even if it's one little thing a day. And I've been considering writing a third book for a while, and I finally found the, you know, the strength to kind of, you know, really get started on it and move forward with it. And what I find is the more active I am, the more willing I am to, you know, not punish myself for being down. And, you know, the more things happen, the more amazing people you meet. And so, yeah, so it has more of my personal story. A lot of things, again, that I'm not proud of, but hopefully it helps some others, again, feel not alone and relate, and, you know, realize that, you know, they can, you know, really do things that they might not ever have considered or thought themselves capable of. And, you know, really, it's never doubt yourself. So, and my third book, which I'll just mention, it's not autism related, but I've been a runner for well, pretty much forever. And at the encouragement of my publishers, I did write a book on running. It's 6-word lessons on the sport of running, 100 lessons to enjoy running for a lifetime. And so, you know, my diagnosis is it's a very personal decision, and I wouldn't ever tell someone that they, you know, should seek diagnosis. But the one thing I do have to say is knowledge is power. And so, you know, if you suspect something about yourself, whether you seek a formal diagnosis or not, just keep learning, and, you know, be real with yourself, and trust your instincts. You know, so to parents out there who are, you know, trying to help their kids, you know, even if a professional tells you, you know, that you're wrong, or you know, you're whatever it may be, if your instincts tell you otherwise, trust them. And for those of you on the spectrum, also, you know, trust your instincts. And if you don't have good instincts, you know, develop them. Keep working. Keep learning yourself. And you know, for those who are supporting people on the spectrum, you know, listen to their voice. Help them do that. Don't to everyone. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That is how we learn. And, you know, I'm somebody who I absolutely hate to make mistakes. I hate to fail. I mean, nobody enjoys it, but it's very scary, and it can be very limiting. But that's something that we need to do. And when we make mistakes, when we fall, when we don't maybe accomplish what we set out to do, it's really not failing, because, you know, whether we realize it or not, we learn when we make mistakes, and when we do fail. And really the only failure out there is the unwillingness to try. So just, you know, no matter, don't ever be afraid to try. And don't doubt yourself. Again, there's so people on the spectrum out there. You are capable of accomplishing, so much. Don't limit yourself. Don't let people who might doubt you limit. And, know that the goal you might want to accomplish, maybe you don't reach it in the original picture that you have, but you can still accomplish a part of it and still get enjoyment out of it. I'm not a self-supporting author, but I never would have thought that I would have published a book, let alone 3, or helped people. And that is that's reason enough to keep going. And it's allowed me to meet so many amazing people. And it just and including, with the pandemic, I have, through my books and willingness to share my story, I met another amazing person. And I have now partnered with a small nonprofit organization called Full Spectrum Agency for Autistic Adults. Kristen, I don't know if you want to put the website in the chat. It's fullspectrumasd.org. Katie, I don't know if you're out there, but I'm gonna, give you some props. Katie Oswald, who's also on the autism spectrum, it's her nonprofit, and I have now partnered with her. One of the things that we're doing, is we're creating a social skills curriculum for geared specifically for people on the autism spectrum, and kind of geared a little more towards adults, and also kind of, trying to help to bridge that gap, because there are a lot of people out there and organizations out there who offer social skills training, but there's a piece missing. And there are just so many things that people who are not on the spectrum don't realize and take for granted. And so together we're trying to fill that gap. So that's in process. But one of the things that Full Spectrum offers for anybody on the spectrum out there listening, or who just feels they might fit, there are free meetings, peer support meetings, and hangout meetings, and resource meetings. And it's just a lot of like-minded people just getting together to chat and support each other. And Katie is a wonderful, welcoming person, and she's now allowed me to team with her and help co-facilitate. And we're also looking to start some smaller groups. So anybody interested in that, please reach out to me, check out the website, check out the meetings. I'm sorry, I quickly running out of time here, so I'm going to wrap it up. But I want to I just want to mention a couple things. One, a really amazing piece of advice that, and it was actually the same person who I train with sometimes gave me one time. And just mind you, he's always late, but I learned to accept his ways the same way he has learned to accept me. And like I said, I've been a runner for a long time, and I run anything from the shortest of distances on up through the furthest I've gone is 100 miles. And I never knew that people ran 100 miles, and it was certainly never anything I considered. But from starting, I learned about marathons, which is 26.2 miles. And then I learned about ultra marathons, which is anything beyond 26.2 miles. And, you know, from there, I learned about 100-mile races, and it wasn't ever anything that I even would have considered doing. And all of a sudden, one day it became a good idea, and I started considering it. And I talked to my friend and, you know, the people in the training, and, you know, it would come up, you know, from more and more often. And he finally looked at me one day and said, "Tracey, what are you waiting for?" And really, that's kind of it. You know, it's really scary to take risks, but whether you accomplish exactly, you know, what you're intending or not, you learn. And so I kind of jumped off the cliff and I signed up. And the cutoff, at least for that first one, was 30 hours. And I can't say I didn't run fast, and I can't say I'm particularly proud of my time. I ran like a 29, I think maybe 37 minutes, something like that. But I made it. I ran 100 miles. I made it. I accomplished my goal, and you know, have run 2 since. So, but for supporters out there, as well as people on the spectrum, even if something that someone who you're supporting, even if you don't think they can do it, even if it sounds absolutely ridiculous to you, don't tell them they're going to fail. Believe in them. They have a goal for a reason. They have an interest for a reason, and whether or not they accomplish it, or whether or not it's something that you think is, you know, a great thing to do, because my family certainly thought it was. They certainly didn't think it was a good idea. And I hesitated telling them. But, you know, to each his own. We all have our different interests and passions and things that, you know, keep us going, and that we learn from. And, you know, people on the autism spectrum, our ways are different, and our thinking, our thought process are different, but it doesn't mean that we're wrong. So, you know, let's together, you know, kind of find that missing link. Let's bridge that gap between awareness and knowledge, and really true understanding and acceptance. So anyway, I tend to ramble, but I thank each and every one of you for taking your time to listen. And I truly hope that, you know, that everybody who attended got something out of it, whether it be a resource, or, you know, some inspiration or some validation. And to that end, I'm going to turn it back to you, Kristen. And, you know, whatever I should have said in the beginning, I'm an open book. I'm willing to answer any questions that anybody has, because I truly want to help. And if there's something that I feel crosses the line, I'll let you know. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracey. I always am so inspired by you. You're an inspiration, sharing your bravery. So you are brave in sharing your story, and everything, all of your knowledge and insight with us. So thank you so much. I know there have been a number of people in the chat who are just saying thank you. And I will restate everything that we posted earlier with the website and your contact information, your books once again. But I did want to say thank you so much one more time. We will be taking questions here shortly.